Derivatives trading involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results. Good morning, it's Friday. We're up pretty significantly overnight. Also, Bitcoin. Okay, man. I'll get into Bitcoin in a bit. Bitcoin is being weird, but let's talk the other instruments first. Let's just pull this thing up. Yeah. So here's our big move. Okay, so yesterday the E-mini started down and we had a pretty good rally, and then they gave it up, but they started higher. So this says to me day traders are buying it and taking their positions off. All's good. Now we're kind of ranging in this overnight, but we have had movement. So remember, each bar is like 1,000 ticks. Oh no, wait, these are 30 minutes. Never mind. I don't know what I'm talking about. I don't know. It seems like there's a lot of movement though. This one compared to this one. It's kind of weird. Yes, it's just because it's been such a tight range and it's zigzagged back and forth. ZN here, you can see though that we had a significant move up. We beat out the high from yesterday easily. Yesterday was a buy day. There is this target up here at 25. It is probably a good target. And we're still above the VWAP. I really couldn't justify selling it at the moment. Although I would not mind seeing it come back. And I just show you here in the one range chart, lots of zippers is not necessarily a good sign. That's a very rangy market. So bias, I guess it would have to be up, but I'm going to be extra cautious and I'm going to take small profits, and I'm not going to mess around too much because it is Friday and I don't think there's any news today, is there? Do we have news? Boom, 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 boom. Where is it? Where are you? There you are. Oh, so we got Canadian CPI information coming up at 6:30. So the market might actually move on that. We'll see. Anyways, so that's where we're at. Let's go grab our links. There's that one, and there's that one. I need to add on to here, if I can, indicators, volume profile column, reset profile on week. Okay. That's not right. How about never? Wonder what's wrong with my thing. It's always worked before. It doesn't like 30-minute ones. 30-minute bars for some reason. No.
Brandset GM. Brandset Windows update took 45 minutes. Brand said that was pretty steady buying O/N.
Yeah. Well, it definitely moved.
Brand said ES and 6J relatively flat.
Yeah. Canadian CPI might matter. Well, so let's see. We got some people in now. No. Oh, I posted the link. Wait, am I doing this wrong? Dum bum bum ba dum. I don't know. No, I'm streaming. Okay. Well, we do have some here on Twitch. A little sparse this morning.
Brand
Well,
said TKS.
I'll go into it anyways. So I know I'll just have to repeat myself later, but apparently nobody wants to wake up early on a Friday. 71. You didn't get a new number today. Okay, PCH came back. So I guess that's good, but I don't know, it's kind of weird. Kind of weird, guys. Ethereum done that. When you look at it on this chart, Ethereum is a little scary, but there's been some moves since since that data was grabbed. Got to keep in mind it grabs at a certain time. So here I saw something interesting when I looked at it this morning. After I woke up. So Bitcoin does appear to have found some support around 1,000 here. It was super comfortable there. But if we come back over here to Bitcoin Cash, and Bitcoin Cash back up pretty good. And Ethereum really looking good. So now all of a sudden, if we're bouncing and we're coming out of these, Ethereum and Bitcoin Cash actually kind of look like more positive charts to me than Bitcoin does. But I don't know, my Bitcoin barely recovered anything. Like that's barely anything, 1,000. That's like 2%, right? And when you look at Bitcoin Cash, it's like 10%. Almost $100. Kind of weird, right? So I think there's some pretty good opportunity in these if we move just because of that. But we'll see. There's a chance that we come up. I mean, what would happen in Bitcoin here? Well, there's no volume, so I guess I can't. Guess it wouldn't matter. Guess it wouldn't matter. The chart is still a little hard to predict, we'll say. Yeah. I don't see any information out there. What's our Z Classic doing, by the way? Okay, pool ended 2 a.m. Eastern Time on February 28th. Oh, great. Like in the middle of the night when I'm not going to want to change it. Ooh, I have a whole 0.3 Bitcoin private now. But what is it going to launch at? I mean, if it's anywhere close to CCL, that's pretty good. I don't think it will be quite the same, though. We're going to pull up a TweetDeck. Tweet in the deck and TweetDeck. It's up for a triple digit pop, is it? If they say so. Ugh. Did you see this story? Armed officer on the Florida high school campus did nothing to stop the shooter. He was in position outside, but he did not enter the building. Man. This story. Hold on. Hold on.
IQ said he was protecting his pension.
Okay, news is going to come out here in a second. That's an interesting comment, IQ. He was protecting his pension. Yeah, that's one way of putting it. It sounds to me like he was an old guy, and somebody was saying this is like the safest school in America. Like, it's a very, very heavily Democratic district. It's pretty well-to-do place. Nobody expected that anything like this would ever happen, and he took a job that was supposed to be an easy job because nothing ever happened there. And yeah, it kind of seems like maybe, I mean, I don't want to say for sure because we don't really know. We don't know what he was thinking, but it kind of sounds like he just kind of wussed out because he was only there to collect his pension.
IQ said or drill went live.
Yeah, I mean, it could have been that he thought it was a drill. Maybe. That really, so that's another thing is, You know, they do these drills a lot, right? And the shooter knows that the drills are going on, and this kind of shows that if you were a shooter, that doing it during a drill would be an opportune time to create extra chaos and improve your probability of success. Here's the thing about this, I think it just keeps getting worse and worse. Um, if you look at the way that people reacted to the shooting, there's really two groups of people as I see it. And in this instance, it happens to fall along partisan lines. I don't think that that's always the case. Although I do think liberals do tend to think a certain way, but it's not a strictly partisan thing. I don't want to make it a partisan thing. But there's two groups, and the first group is this should never happen. They look at it and they say, well, this kid should never have been able to have guns. We shouldn't have guns. They shouldn't be able to get them into the schools. You know, all of these things. And then the other group is kind of more like, okay, now that it's happened, what do we do? It's almost like an acknowledgement that we couldn't necessarily have predicted this. And the reason I bring it up is because, in my view, it's different approaches to risk. There seems to be this idea out there among a lot of people in our society nowadays that you can eliminate risk. Like if all of the regulations and everything is set up correctly, that risk just disappears. And that's not what happens. You can spread risk out. You can limit your risk. And you can recover from risk events, disasters. You can recover from disasters, but you can't eliminate risk. And the opposite side is kind of almost like, okay, well, look at all the things that failed, right? Kid probably shouldn't have been able to buy those weapons because of all of the police reports against him, but those police reports didn't show up on the records because, you know, there's laws that allow those kinds of infractions to not go on their records because they're kids. The parents clearly failed in some respects. The FBI failed because people gave them tips. All of these things, if all of these things failed, what makes you think that if there was some other added strict law to prevent this guy from getting weapons, they wouldn't have been able to get through that as well? And so when you look at it from that perspective, then you have to sit down and say, well, okay, if we know that even though we should certainly do everything that we can to try and prevent this from happening in the future, we have to acknowledge that there are going to be some instances where it just happens and there's nothing we can do about it. Then what do we do? And that's why their solution is, well, when that disaster happens, the only thing we can do to limit the loss of life is to get armed forces to the school as quickly as possible. And since a police response can take time, it would make sense to have better security in the school, which means more armed guards. And I have to say, there should be at least two. The buddy system, maybe that guy would have gone in if he had a buddy sitting in his ear saying, you know, we got to go and do something. There's a reason that they, you know, you have buddies in the military, in combat. And you know, this idea of arming teachers. Now, of course, I think the idea that's as it's presented out there is a little ridiculous. I think it kind of gets misrepresented. I think the idea would just be, if you're a teacher and you own a concealed carry permit and you would be allowed to conceal carry at school. I know that's what they allow where I live, and it hasn't been a problem yet. So we'll see. But it's kind of like different approaches to risk, right? And when you think about trading, you really have to take the latter approach. Obviously, a day where you lose, your loss limit, or more than your daily loss limit, should never happen. Like, we would prefer that our system is good enough to always be able to not have, for me, more than a $250 loss. But fact is, it happens. It's a disaster. And what happens when your trading system fails like that? What is our disaster recovery plan? We stop trading. You hit your daily loss limit and you stop trading. That's what we do, right? You have to assume that at some point this thing is going to happen despite our best efforts, and we have to have a disaster recovery plan for when it happens. So that's my rant. Now, whether or not teachers and still carrying schools, kind of.
I think the overarching issue is of training. The only figures whom I'd trust to properly wield a firearm and discharge it under duress are ex-mil folks. Teachers aren't ex-mil.
And if, when I have kids, I don't want an entire state education system populated by nothing but ex-military teachers. Well, look, okay, so this is an interesting thing. And here's the problem. We really don't have the data to make this decision, do we? Now, Utah allows it. Maybe someday we will have some instances where we can see, okay, how many teachers actually ended up doing it.
Tucker said, obviously I'm snowballing a bit, but it seems silly in general.
Yeah, sure. Now that we have states doing it, and Wyoming added it, and Florida is considering it. So once we've had that, maybe we'll be able to get some data. We'll be able to say, okay, how many accidents have actually happened? Has it actually helped in a situation when there was a shooter? In states that have those laws, are there less shootings? But today we really don't have the data to really make a for sure decision. But the one thing that I will say is, okay, so for instance, you talk about discharging a firearm under duress. Well, for sure. But here's the thing. During a disaster situation, it's impossible to sit down and say in every little thing what was the right thing for you to do, because they're so unpredictable. Should you have gone this direction or that direction? Should you have hid here or there? And did you make a mistake that allowed the shooter to find you, and all of things like this? And okay, if there's an active shooter situation and a concealed carry teacher fights back, yeah, there is a risk that somebody could also get hurt in the crossfire, or that you might misidentify somebody or something like that. Sure, there's a risk, but that risk kind of has to be compared against the risk that we've already seen, which is an active shooter going and killing a dozen people. Like if there's a teacher and he shoots and a student gets injured in the crossfire, I think that's pretty acceptable if it meant that the shooter was stopped before he was able to kill a dozen more people. But the earlier point, though, is that we don't really know what that comparison is because we don't have the data to make it. But just because there might be problems with the concealed carry system doesn't necessarily mean that we shouldn't do it. We would have to take all of the pros and cons and weigh them against each other. Just like in a trading system, just because you see a trade and Tucker you see that exactly. It happens all the time.
I'm sure the guy that waited outside the doors is kicking himself, but I still disagree with the CC teacher. Teachers aren't paid and trained to handle weapons in tents.
Where did he stop? Teachers aren't paid to train and handle weapons in tense scenarios. The military does that exclusively, which is why I'd only trust an individual in that capacity to make decisions in a shooting scenario. Right. So what was I kind of lost my train of thought there. So here's another point on the concealed carry teacher thing. I think at this point, one would also have to ask themselves, do I believe or do I support current concealed carry laws? And do I believe that concealed carry laws help prevent or limit the damage of active shooters in public situations? So, active shooters aren't always just in schools. We've had them in here in Utah. There was one at the mall. And in that situation, there could be a concealed carry permit holder stop the person, and that has happened a few times. And I know not everybody agrees that having concealed carry holders helps or not, but the reason why I would ask that question is I say, if you agree with the concealed carry laws and you think that they help out in the public, why would it be any different in school? I guess because there's kids, but I mean, it seems like the risk reward calculation is no different. Am I wrong in that? Is there something about the school that makes it unique in that respect? Do we not trust our teachers? That's the other thing. Yeah, because I feel like obviously there are some pretty shitty teachers out there. I mean, I have to admit, remember when I was a kid, there was always that one teacher that everybody just thought was a creep, and usually got kicked out of school for sexual harassment. Okay, but in general, I think that I would trust teachers more to be a concealed carry holder than a lot of the other people out there that have concealed carry permits. I'm going to take a few bites here. You can type.
Tucker said, I suppose that's a fair example. Eileen right, but on the gun issue I just cannot get behind the arm the teachers issue.
Well, I guess that the thing is, I guess we're just gonna have to let a little bit of time pass and see how it works out, because the thing that I don't that seems to be missing in all of the online conversation, that just doesn't make any sense to me. Anytime that this armed teachers issue comes out, they're already doing it, guys. There are teachers in Utah that conceal carry at school. It happens. It's been the law in Utah for like 2 years now. They're already trying it, and Wyoming passed a law yesterday. Florida I think Florida and Alabama are considering laws. So they're gonna do it. We'll just let the states do their thing and see how it works out for them.
Tucker said from a student's standpoint, obviously the administration won't disclose the CC teachers. But, people will talk, and students know that 25-year Sally Sue is unlikely to be armed, while the
Well, the 40-year-old ex-military physical ed teacher probably has a weapon stored somewhere, and if you want to do harm, you now know where your focus needs to lie. Well, sure, yeah. And you might can still carry it, but I think at some point it would be inevitable that a student might realize that you have a weapon, and people might talk, and there might be rumors about this teacher carries or this teacher carries. And yeah, it would make them a target for a shooter. I don't know if that means that the shooter that the
Delta
concealed
said
permit
US
carrier
Army
would
get
be
every
useless.
year $500 billion. Would that be so hard to give at least 2 soldiers to each school or give money on better security in schools?
Yeah. Well, it seems to me like schools should have every school should have 2 police officers. I know they have resource officers, but I think they should have 2. I think that's an easy first step. Let's do 2. It's kind of hard because
Tucker said, or the opposite, if one wanted to do harm for 5 to 10 minutes, just avoid the PE buildings. Go to English. Go to math. Go where it's unlikely that somebody is armed.
Here, let's do this in the stream channel. What was I gonna say? Oh yeah, it's kind of hard because I find that it's easier to tell the effects of something if you make small changes a little bit at a time. It would be nice to be able to go in and say, okay, let's just make sure that there are 2 armed police officers at every school and see how that changes things. But like, you can't do that because you've got to try and do your very best to try and prevent this tragedy as much as possible. Like, it's not acceptable to say, well, we know that with this system there might still be some loss of life, but we're willing to accept that in order to test our system and make sure we know what we're doing. Like, no. You can do that in trading on sim, but you can't do that in real life with shootings. So it's really hard to really know for sure what would be the most effective solution. U.S. military not allowed to work on U.S. soil. That's the job of the National Guard.
Tucker said, LOL, only a 20% drawdown in student population, but a 68% chance of consistent educational return.
Oh man, see, that's a problem. I tell you what. So here's a slightly different subject. So I have difficulty controlling my attention. So I do take like Adderall when I trade, just a very, very small amount, and then I also have to take like Strattera, which is really weird stuff, by the way. And one of the things, so what these medications do is they increase the amount of neurotransmitters that you have in your brain clefts, basically. So it makes certain brain cells more likely to trigger and fail trigger sooner under certain circumstances, and particularly in your frontal cortex. And your frontal cortex is kind of responsible for managing the other parts of the brain, particularly
Delta
your
said,
emotions.
Fran, do you think it'd be hard to slightly change that rule? I don't think so. Solution: give more money to National Guard, isn't it?
Yeah. Anyways, and so especially your emotional centers. So I've noticed that
Brand said no because it's in our constitution.
Yeah. I've noticed that since I started taking that medication, that I am just not in tune with people's emotions as I used to be. I used to go out on lots of dates, and I always really enjoyed talking to people and hearing what their problems were and stuff. And it seemed like every time I went out, made some sort of connection, even though it wasn't necessarily a match. But then after I started taking it, it was just like nothing. And I think that that's kind of the situation here. Like, there's all these people running around saying, "Oh, there's blood on your hands," and they're so emotional. Like this CNN town hall thing, very very emotional group of people, and I'm just sitting here like, okay, let's think about this rationally, guys, because I just don't. I'm just not as in tune with what people are feeling anymore. It's kind of weird to have to admit, but and it's most poignant in times like this. Like, I want to say something on Facebook, like, okay, you're saying this and that's irrational. You're saying this and that's irrational. Let's look at this from a rational mathematical point of view. But I couldn't go on Facebook and say that. I mean, people would be pissed. You know? Seth, our DOM volumes are a bit off. Check 120 and 185. So I see... Oh, sorry, 210. So he sees 27. Oh, so mine is a little bit off. Is a little bit different from yours. So, Tucker, are you using Rhythmic or CQG? So I have seen the differences between the two data feeds, and they just end up filtering things a little bit different. You can see small differences like that. And I'm using Rhythmic. But it doesn't S5 get their data through... Who do they get their... It's IQ feed. So that's probably why. Different data providers. Yeah, that's interesting. I haven't seen that in a long time, but when we were in, when I was in John Bottomley's trading room, we saw that all the time. And it is a slight difference in it. Yeah, you would think so. Yeah, it's friends saying it's really the job of the FBI. Holy crap, did the FBI blow this one, right? I just... It also, it kind of makes me frustrated that the news media...
Brand said just watching the footprint.
is so focused on the gun control issues right now, when the most unique thing about this particular shooting is how badly the FBI effed up. I mean, like, 2 people called, this kid had been arrested multiple times. How could they screw up so bad? It's mind-boggling. Go ahead, I'm going to take a few bites.
Tucker said, on the other hand, assuming the FBI isn't incompetent, imagine how busy with other things they must be to overlook this kid. Fran said Delta, they don't have a crystal ball to consult. Stuff happens. That's life. Delta said right.
Well, I think in this case, you're right. The FBI has a lot of stuff to do, but they did not follow their own protocols. So if the FBI had done what they're supposed to do, it would have been different. It's like when you don't follow your trading plan. It's like when I trade against the VWAP, when my trade against the VWAP exception criteria is not met. You know, you're not trading. The FBI was not following its own plan.
Fran said, I'm sorry for the kids at Parkland, but they knew this shooter had a history. That's the key. Have a protocol to identify the nutcases and take them out of the way. Delta said all this shooting in school come from their frustrations, possible fail thanks to those teachers too. Fran said if he didn't have a gun, there are multiple other ways to do a lot of damage. Tucker said I agree with the protocol. However, it's just a matter of time until there's a false positive, and some poor kid's life is ruined under false pretenses. Fran said it's not about the gun ammo. It's about the nutcases. Fran said that's a statistical inevitability. Fran said you can't get around that.
This particular shooting is going to be in people's minds for a long time, just because of how badly everything failed. There's been school shootings that, you know, people forget about
Tucker
the next
said,
day.
yeah. And I'd definitely say that even 100 false positives is worth saving the shooting that just happened.
Oh, totally. Totally. There's like, putting it in a trading perspective, we're talking about something where the risk reward is like 100 to 1, right? And it's worth it to get it wrong 100 or even 1,000 times to just stop one of those, for sure.
Fran said every time one of these incidents happens, it's the same old gun argument. Well, the gun didn't shoot by itself. It's the kid who was a nut job and needed to be institutionalized.
Yeah, I just don't understand how this kid was able to slip through. Like, seriously, the kid went on YouTube and said, I want
Fran
to be...
said same kid could have gone into a shopping mall or a supermarket.
He said, I want to be a school shooter on Facebook under his real name. Under his real name. And they didn't pick him up. Like, really? Like, the FBI saw it. Somebody looked at it. And they said, oh, well, I can't find him. Unbelievable. I just can't even. And meanwhile, you have CNN is able to look people up and find people that happened to repost Facebook events that were created by Russians to go down and track them down and go to their house. But the FBI can't find somebody to use their real name. Come on.
Fran said everyone knew this kid was a threat. They didn't do anything and this is the result. Tucker said agreed that it's insane from that standpoint. Again though, if the FBI missed that, either they're full of McDonald's workers or they have bigger fish. Fran said I agree, the FBI needs a huge overhaul.
Yeah. They got some problems.
Tucker said true.
Now, and I don't buy into this. Like, one of the counter arguments I've seen about that's been floating around is, oh, they have time to investigate Russian collusion, but they don't have time for
Delta
this kid.
said question is where he got the
don't
gun.
think that's what happened.
Problem is probably in almost free distribution of guns without license. Anybody can buy gun in US, that should be probably changed. Fran said it's the leadership, just look at the political situation, something very, very wrong with that agency. Delta said people want to protect themselves with guns, but it can be easily abused.
There's definitely, so this is another one, because think about the
Fran said removing guns doesn't
which one was
threat
it?
or the crazy people.
It wasn't Las Vegas, but it was like the school shooting before that, and this person, or maybe it was some mass shooting, and this guy had like a history of domestic abuse or something, and it should have prevented him.
It can postpone the threat.
Should have prevented him from being able to purchase a weapon, and the FBI background check system just didn't work properly. And I don't think they ever fixed that. Like, that whole thing just kind of got buried in the larger media narrative. You could close all the gun stores in this country and still have 300 million guns on the street. Yeah. So the thing here, so here's another one that drives me nuts. Is people say, well, you banning guns isn't going to solve the problem. And the counter argument that I hear to that is, well, they did it in Australia and Great Britain, and they don't have school shootings. Yeah, but they never had school shootings in the first place. So it's not really a valid comparison. If you had a country where they were having as many school shootings as the United States, and then they did something and that problem went away, then it would be a reasonable explanation, you know? But here in America, the culture is just very different from the United Kingdom or Australia. It's not a real comparison. You can't ban guns in the United States. One, because it's unconstitutional, and there's just way too much legal precedent to do that at this point. But two, there's just so many guns out there in the United States compared to anywhere else in the world. Even if you were somehow able to successfully ban it, there would still be guns out there and people would still have easy access to them. Well, it was definitely fault of parents. Because remember, this kid's mom, so here's my understanding about the kid. I would like to read more on this, but here's my current understanding, is that the kid's mom basically lived on welfare, was living on the government, and didn't teach him anything, and he had a very troubled home life, and she died. And so a nice family took him in, and it actually appears to me, this is where it gets crazy, there was actually a significant amount of inheritance money that this kid has, like $800,000 or something. Yeah. And that may have been one of the factors behind why this family took him in. And so they say, oh, we just had this monster living in our house and we just didn't know it. I don't buy it one bit. I don't buy it one bit. There was all sorts of warning signs this kid was a monster, and they didn't want to acknowledge it. They looked the other way. So scary. I think absolutely that the parents deserve some blame in this case. And that money, that inheritance money, is probably going to end up going to victims. Yeah, they're going to be able to claim it. They're not going to get any money. Their behavioral algorithms maybe could figure it out. Okay, now this is another interesting subject, Delta. It's that I don't want to change the subject, but this one really interests me. They have an algorithm now that, given a photograph of somebody, they can determine with about 70% accuracy whether or not they are gay. And if you give them 5 photos, they can determine it with 90% accuracy. Like that is like some Black Mirror shit, right? Like, is it possible that they can just look? No, it's totally real. They did like a real statistical study on this. Decker's like, huh, that can't be real. The question is, what does the algorithm? Because here it's a machine learning algorithm, so I don't think that the researchers themselves even completely understand how it figures out that somebody is gay. It could just have something to do with their style, but isn't that crazy? The machine learning algorithms kind of scare me sometimes, because really what it is it's curve fitting, isn't it? It's curve fitting, and it works. And that's what you have trading these markets. Yeah. Face recognition, insane. Oh yeah. And then this is why the Chinese. Oh, I'm so glad you mentioned this, Fran, because the Chinese have all of these ideas about how they're going to monitor every citizen and their activities online and give them a score, like a citizenship score, based on the things that they do and how good of a citizen they are going to be. And there's even talk of like gamifying it almost, but it's, you know, that really what it is it's a way to be able to collect information on everybody and use machine learning algorithms to try and predict what they might do. Does it also find hidden gays? Well, I think that they were all self-identified gays, yeah. Because how else would you be able to say that they were, take a bunch of photos and then, oh, this one says that you're gay, and then go and confront them and they have to admit it and come out. I don't. So I think that's a one thing on that study that we have to look at is, or keep in mind, is that it's probably, it's definitely self-identified gays, and the gay community definitely does things to identify itself, with they have their own unique style and look and stuff. And I'm sure that the machine algorithm is probably picking up on that significantly. I got a coworker, her girlfriend works in machine learning and health, of all things. It seems that insurance companies really would like to know who's going to have a heart attack in 30 years to pump up those premiums. Oh yeah. Well, they're not even going to have to use machine learning algorithms. You're going to do DNA sequencing. They got companies. I was at the doctor the other day, and because my wife has thyroid issues when we're talking about getting pregnant, and he also, while we were there, they said, oh, you can take this DNA test, and it's only like $100 now. And they'll tell you like every bad disease that you have. Okay, something's happening. That, I don't know what that was. That was kind of weird because it looked like a machine gun, but the lot sizes were all totally different. not sure what to make of that, especially since ZF is really come down in cumulative delta. It doesn't look like there's a whole lot of volume going through though. But we still have HIPAA laws, so they're not supposed to have that information. Oh yeah, that's a good point. You could do that, but your insurance company isn't supposed to be able to have it. Well, somebody's buying this. That I'm going to call it a machine gun, but it's definitely not your usual machine gun. It's now come through at 19 twice now. They bought it up and they stuck a big bid there. And now they're hitting that bid and it's absorbing. And meanwhile, on the other side, we have this huge bid has developed at 0.95. Which is just a massive bid to be placed on the DOM that close. And some of it just pulled, in fact. Does that mean that they realized that they weren't going to get filled and bought it? Because now we just went up 2 ticks. So just was browsing a little bit, and I have a friend that on Facebook that apparently lives in Florida, and they said that they had another threat at their school. Somebody issued a threat, and since there isn't a police officer at their school, they're not letting their kid go. And she says that if you issue a threat, you just get a 10-day suspension. Like, holy crap. You should get more than a 10-day suspension if you issue a gun threat to a school. And I'm thinking we could move up here. I'm just kind of looking for a spot. So the problem is that this 210 was a zipper area that was there for a long time. So it's not necessarily the best place to be taking a trade. Well, I'm not liking what I'm seeing right now at all. Kind of looks like fishy business to me. Know what I'm saying? We changed this? I don't think we did. Alright, I haven't had much problem in here, so I'm going to make this one open again. Oh, so I didn't even most checked the YouTube comments. Oh yeah, Reckley, I saw that thing that you posted in off topic, but I haven't looked at it. I haven't watched the video. It's times like these I know that if I buy in Bitcoin, it will dump, and if I don't, there won't be a leg down for another $1,000. Right. I don't know. Look at this in the Bitcoin futures. Do you see my chart? I should have put this in the Bitcoin channel. Is it? No, it's 857. Or sorry, almost 75 contracts. I don't know what's going on. It's kind of weird. This setup in Bitcoin is weird. Hey, Def Pluto. Yeah, I really can't explain it other than that if we keep moving up, there's going to be some stops, but for some reason, somebody really wants to sell it below 1,000. Seems to be a lot of manipulation. Yeah, I would agree with that. Seems to me like the move up earlier in the week in Bitcoin was a little bit of manipulation, and of course that came off when they took their profit. Seems to me that this morning, when we move up, that Bitcoin went more than the others. Okay, what? That was a 5K iceberg buy. Somebody getting ready for a dump in the E-mini? Hmm. And they put a big bid that time. And a bunch of retail traders are buying it here. I could buy 20 or 20 half, but not 21. Unless there was really some momentum behind it. Bitcoin 15-minute chart, so overbought. Oh, okay. It looks like you're at a what would be considered an average up move at the moment, you know? Just based on the VWAP. Okay, and they didn't hold. And in fact, that 19 half actually pulled a little bit. It was when it come up to 20 half and seeing all of those retail traders coming in, you know, I just thought it seemed a little too obvious for me to want to take it there. RSI is 80. Yeah. Well, I think it probably will pull back a little bit and just kind of hold this. And maybe they come back to 10K. Meanwhile, the bond has been buying. Oh, it's at 90 right now in the 15-minute chart. How frequently does it do that though in Bitcoin 15-minute chart? Interesting. It's really a momentum-based trading entity. Yep. Oh, we're gonna have snow this weekend. Trump to say U.S. launching largest ever North Korea sanctions. Interesting. Takes 25 minutes for mine to be in focus if interrupted by things like calls and emails. Really? On futures, speculative shorts are at all-time highs, which is why we're moving up. Bank of America thinks volatility is going to come in. Well, now it's completely come off in ZN as well. Hmm. Hmm. The problem with this kind of trading is that by the time it gives some sort of actionable signal, like the kind that I would like to see, that's about where it wants to turn around. You're too late at that point. Well, this buy is not as convincing. I wonder if that's an indication that it's actually going to pop this time.
Trade the traders said ZNZB. We see new high then short BOK at the moment.
Wait, what the fetch? My weightlifting coach posted this thing, and I don't believe it, but she has a study to back it up. Doing a handstand for 30 seconds and then immediately standing on the scale takes between 0.03 and 0.04 kilograms off your measured body weight. Well, how does standing on your head? Dude, I don't understand.
Trade the traders said ES maybe in 2 minutes BAM short.
Well, yeah, I think I would still have to go with the long. What was John's bias day? Where's his... morning notes for Friday? Price is trading north of the price we were trading when FOMC minutes were released on Wednesday. This move to the upside that started around 2 a.m. Eastern Time looks a little overbought to me. 1.06 off the overnight lows, so my initial thought is we might be due for a pullback in here from the 143.30 to 144 area. Which is exactly where it turned around. Midpoint for the overnight session sits at 143.11. Okay. If the pullback doesn't coincide with the RTH open, we could see prices push higher to test prior supply in the 144.06 to '08 area, which would extend the overnight by another 25%. Well, we did in ZB have shortly after the open was when we hit that high, and since then we've come down. So I guess by his email, that would be a very, very tepid sell. Since we kind of reversed at the open.
Trade the traders said please get in and enjoy the ride down in ES.
Okay, so there's a tick higher. Hmm. Okay. So I was really, really hoping that it was going to give me a backtick there, and it didn't. So now we could take 21.
Trade the traders said Hope winking face.
Yeah. I like that the targets we see on the DOM, like that 5,000, is not at the high of the day, it's past the high of the day.
Trade the traders said ES -5.
Hmm. Oh, I wanted to see some of these orders going market, but it just didn't really happen. Wow, okay, that was some stops. Actually saw quite a few stops there. Oh, come on. Don't play that game. Well, I don't like that. Pretty solid tick down. Could just be a pullback, so staying calm. I'm going to do 100 handstands right now. Good grief. Don't understand why these countries on the US hit list for sanctions, etc., would create their own cryptocurrency that could also be sanctioned rather than use an existing cryptocurrency looking droopy. Yeah, that's a good point. Like, this Venezuelan cryptocurrency is not. Nobody's gonna buy it. I don't think they will do well. We'll see, but I'm suspecting that they won't do well. Especially, the thing that would bother me about that is the cryptocurrencies are inherently, very much free market to the extreme. And you have a country with like Venezuela that has been, anti-free market basically. Something tells me that this cryptocurrency thing isn't going to go the way that they expect it to. And then they're just going to blame the greedy capitalists for ruining their currency. Okay.
Trade the traders said ES will accept the lower prices. There is slaughtered fork and knife.
Come on. Okay, that's a little better.
Trade the traders said ES is pouting face too volatile to get a good price for entry.
Okay, well there we finally ticked up. I don't see anybody touching 22 though. Usually, when it's slow like this, they usually don't do it their first time. Sometimes not even the second, but I think an order's going to go through here eventually. There you go. better. Yes, did take a step down there. Nice.
Trade the traders said ES is pile of feces fuck asterisk no fill.
Okay. So ZN is kind of sitting here like, okay, now it's over 2,000. No, that seems like a lot of pressure for, okay. I wouldn't have ticked right up. That 1,800 just followed right with it. I was going to say it seems like a lot for considering that ZF it wasn't showing the same, but it did, the ZF just ticked right up easy. And they did sell all of that. Okay, the ES is starting to take a dive.
IQ said ZB still 70 range.
Pretty high probability at this point that we get a new high. So
IQ said oops just went to 8 LOL.
yeah, okay, now ZF is starting to, there's a big iceberg there. Yep, they busted through it. Let's see, some 12 quarters. Yep. See that firm up. Yep. Here just comes a new high in ZN. Oh, come on, guys. Don't make me look dumb. There we go. Yeah, they can bypass US sanctions with their own cryptocurrency. That's why they do. Well, anybody that has a trade with that cryptocurrency on anywhere in their ledgers is going to get hit. I guarantee it. And I'm a bet that the US government is pretty aggressive about it. So I would recommend staying away. They take that stuff pretty seriously. I mean, no, what exchange is even going to carry it? You know what I mean? It's not going to be on Coinbase, to tell you that much. Yeah, the criminals running the US would stop any other country trading with it. I'm not taking a position, just stating a fact. Yeah, okay, sure. Well, usually this 8:30 time period is kind of slow. Like 8:15 to 8:30 is usually pretty bad. Now we often get something between 8:30 and 9:30. So I think we could have a decent move up. Like, I think I'm gonna put an order at 25. Because there's 24 and 25. I'm pretty confident that they're going to take 24. I don't know if they'll make it to 25. But based on it being so close to single prints there, I think there's a really good chance. So let's just come in here and double check where was these. So 26 was that, but the day of the move, it was 26.5 for sure, and 25. So 25 was the last pivot. So I believe I will take 25.
Fran said can't trade this today. -4, and that's about all I'm willing to give up. See you guys on Monday.
That's unfortunate. Good job stopping though. Only taking a few. Hey. So did CF break a new high? I guess that wasn't a new high, that was just touching it. 122. Well, it's a pretty poor high though. ZF has a lot of people to stop out. Oh, I hate it when Discord does that. Being slow. Oh. That's pretty good. Well,
Anon17 said do not use classic trading.
oh. He was just saying don't use regular. Classic trading styles don't tend not to work. Yeah. Richard Gates poised to plead guilty and cooperate with special counsel, sources say. I would sure hope so. It really looks like Paul Manafort is Fucked. Oh. Yeah. Okay, well, we got a kind of a tick up in ZF. I don't know. Hmm. Nice take. Nice take. Okay, so ZF is like right there again. Unfinished auction. Come on. Okay, well, that was weird. Sleepy, sleepy. Okay, that's not good. Really? Sounds like that the bunny is doing some weird things up there, and I better check on them after I'm done trading. Bunny bun. Need a bigger cage. She's already getting too big. That's the problem. Okay, that's pretty. I like that. I like that that's pulling now. That was somebody wanted to be filled and scared a couple of people. That's what I think that was. Crap. Look at this, look at this dog. Huge dog. Yeah. Okay. So now we're having instances where there's actually pretty good takes and they still go back. Now we are getting some action here. Just a lot of absorption at the high. Whoa. Okay, well. I have to say, based on that there's probably more in this. I mean, at the very least, I should be able to get cleared at 62.5. That was a big order that they just pushed through in ZN. You see that thing right there, and when they busted through it, all three of them just went right up there. Now CB still not quite through. I'm sure it will do so any moment now. The bid is certainly there. Okay, not surprised to see some volume, some icebergs at 23 in ZN. Through this move, we've actually had just a slight bit of steepening that I am just not quite sure what to make of. Kind of just looks like a pullback, but okay. It's looking better. Yeah, this is going to be at least a 5K now. Okay, good tick up. Okay, so now ZB is touched through. They didn't trade it. Come on. Oh, come on. Who's going to be the brave soul to touch 31? No? Maybe. Come on. Any of you guys could do it. It's one contract, just one contract, and I'll be happy at 31. Come on. Well, that's just sad, guys. I mean, really, ZN and ZF did it. And none of you 30-year traders want to buy it, huh? I mean, there's even the big order at 144 even. You could just take one tick there. Yeah, it kind of looks like they're setting up a level break, actually. Or they could be. Curious here. Lots of volume both ways. Really, nobody wants to trade CB. Okay, there. Finally went. 34. Seems like E-mini likes this last little push. They're both going up. Is there something like a hostile takeover of a country by holding / buying 51% of their cryptocurrency? Oh man, that would be. Or if it's a proof of work algorithm, just get 50% of the hashing power. Just take all of the United States supercomputers and have it mine that cryptocurrency, and the 51% attack, and the currency would become worthless. That's what I would do. Probably would be cheaper. Okay, that was an okay tick up. I think there's still a few more ticks in this. We may get CR25. Yeah, that was a really solid uptick. Let's Strangely enough, SCB still not following along. I think that's a really strong pressure now on the bid. Okay. Oh, they took it out. You got filled in buyers. You happy? Apparently. Look at that. Okay, now look at the 800. Woo. Ooh, look at all these guys I want. Phil's. Well, Trade the Trader says, watch out, that's your signal for reversal. Take a profit and be happy. When I mentioned that the E-mini flipped. I'd have to say, though, that the volume... There's a lot of people buying there. The volume could push us through. And there are a lot of people that jumped on. I don't know if that's bad, but I'm usually those guys are gonna get filled. Now, what would really concern me is if I see all this red in the ZN chart right here. See all this red? If that starts going blue, then I'll be more concerned. But I might just take my 4. Oh, they're really putting the pressure on it now. 25. Hmm. Yeah, that's not so positive. Okay, well, there's a pretty big iceberg there. There would be no shame in staying in it and looking to see if you get another push up. Seeing that? Not quite as forceful as I would want. Okay, let's see if I can view this MKV file. Yay! Okay. Whoa. What was that news? How did it know that it was about to go there? Say that again. What time is it? When was this? 14:23 on the 23rd. Oh, wait, that was in November 23rd. I see. But it was at 29:45, so it was like right at the news. Somebody shared that with me in a private message. That's a dangerous game you're playing there, friend. News trading robots. Okay, so it did fall, so it was a good idea that we got out there. Hmm. I'm not quite sure I understand what he's trying to say. Look at this. This is just gonna go right through it. Maybe now make the lows. I don't know about that. I think you have an okay probability of it touching the VWAP now, but I don't know if the risk reward makes sense. It is getting a little odd, somewhat odd move for this late in the session on a Friday with it having been so slow. Well, now absorption at 21. That is a better short signal. I don't think you meant to post that. Wrong window. Well, I don't know if I'm going to take any more trades. I mean, I'm tempted to short it here. I'm wondering if that temptation is just because people in the chat are saying that. It seems to me like that was a pretty significant pull off in ZF, and that we have a really good chance of seeing the VWAP now. But it's already like 9:12, so I have to get off in about 15 minutes. I don't want to get sucked in. I think that puts me about flat on the week because I did have that bad day. And that bad day, and then between today and the big move down we had on the 21st on Wednesday probably equalized it. I think we're flat on the week. That range bound days is where I get screwed over, man. I really need to stop doing that. Oh my gosh, a suspect in Florida school massacre questioned in November over shooting threat. Come on. They actually interviewed him and didn't do anything. Yeah. Yep. Okay, well, let's just look here. Where are we at on the Bitcoins? Well, that's where we were when we came in, and we had another good little move up. It's looking pretty good. Just on that chart. I think somebody's gonna have to puke here at some point. Let's look at let's look at this chart again. So that's a really good candle, guys. Okay, so those two are kind of pulling back, and now is it going back into Bitcoin? Yes, it is. So I wonder if they're playing the game with us, and they had just finished moving into altcoins, and then now they're moving into Bitcoin again. That must be what's going on as they're playing that stupid game, which I don't want to play because I feel like you're just too slow. I'm just too slow. There was no shooting. It was just another staged event to push gun control. They've been busted time and time again. Okay. That's an interesting theory. But can you prove it? I did watch that one video. What was it, that kid? I feel very strongly, although I cannot prove it, but I feel very strongly that CNN is trying to tip the scales a little bit and is feeding these kids talking points and giving them coaching and so forth. And I think that's what happened in that video that we saw. Was CNN producer helping the kid, and I don't think it's proof of a conspiracy, but I think that the reason why the media is not talking about it is because it makes CNN look so awful. Yeah. But I don't think it was a false flag attack to push gun control. If it was, it's not going to work very well. You know, I'll tell you it's something funny before I go here. Another thought I have on the shooting, since we all enjoy talking about that, is one of the things I'm seeing is that the guard did not go in, and people are saying, oh, so guard, just because a guard has a gun doesn't necessarily mean that they become brave when there's a shooter, and it maybe doesn't necessarily help. And I don't think that's a very good persuasion argument there, because everybody that reads about that story just comes out thinking, well, that police officer could have saved dozens of lives. So I don't think that that's going to make people think that we should have less armed guards in schools. I think I personally, when I come out of that, I just think, well, there should be 2 of them. Maybe. Other events have been proven this has all the red flags. Kids saying there was 2 to 3 shooters. Well, okay. In any, literally any disaster involving guns, there are always reports of multiple shooters. Always. That's just the thing. I don't think that you can sit down and say that that's a indication of a false flag when it always happens. The truth of the matter is that untrained humans are just not very good at determining how many shooters there are in a tense active shooter situation, nor they're very good at being able to tell, listening to gunfire and things like this. So there's never been in any of these instances, I've never seen a case where they proved, that there was actually, like, that you could prove in a court of law that there was 2 shooters. fact that you need police in schools is effed up by itself. Well, I don't know. The thing is that at a school, there's like thousands of kids there every day. I'm going to say, if I had a political rally and a few thousand people came to it, there would be multiple cops there. You know, I think that concentration of people justifies a police presence. That's why, of course, we have resource officers in the first place, is because there's enough people there that problems happen, and it's just better for the school to have the police officer there so that he can handle it. But clearly, you would need to have help in an active shooter situation, I think. You don't know any school in Belgium that has that? So not even in your high schools you don't have police officers, huh? Yeah, he did nothing because it was a drill. Something all the kids said was happening, and there's nearly always a drill during government staged events. Okay, now the drill thing is a different story and is interesting. I have heard before in the past of, and I don't remember which one it was, but I do remember there was another shooting where there was a drill going on. Now, I think you'd have to say that drill would be a good time to do something like that. But I just, that's not really proof of anything. One girl said she was with the alleged shooter right after someone was shooting from elsewhere. Okay. I would bet my life on it. I'm 100% certain. Wow. Okay, so I saw somebody post this same thing, that one girl said she was with the alleged shooter right after someone was shooting from elsewhere. And the first question is, can you provide a source where the girl made that statement? I know I've seen it, but I've never seen it firsthand from her. There like a video of her saying that somewhere, or a quote in a newspaper article where she said that? How do I know that she actually said that? We're searching. Whoa, years ago, we once had a shooting in kindergarten. A bunch of little kids died. Other than that, I don't know of any school shooting. Yeah, well, I think the thing you have to keep in mind is that Europe just doesn't have the same cultural problem that the United States has. So I don't know. So the first question I'd have for you was like, did you consider bullying to be a significant problem in like high school? Because in the United States, and I live in Utah, which people are really nice in Utah, and we don't have a whole lot of problems with that. But I still remember there being a lot of cliquishness, and from time to time, there'd be isolated incidents of bullying. Very, very common. And my understanding is that culture is a lot worse in the United States than it is in other countries. It doesn't really work quite the same way in, say, Asian countries, because everybody's so focused on their studies. Even though I'm sure there's bullying in Asian countries. Super bad, but the study still takes a focus. Bullying exists, but not to the extent it ruins people's lives. Sure. I would say that's the way it was at my school. Bullying existed, but it not to the extent that it ruins people's lives. So then the next thing is that mental health in the United States is handled differently than in Europe. Like in the United States, they like closed all the mental hospitals back in like the Reagan years. I remember when I was a missionary in where was it? Was the capital Topeka? Oh my gosh, there was a lot of less accountable people, is what we called them. There was a lot of crazy people out there, and also in Liberty, Missouri. Lots. It's like there would be some sort of mental health hospital there, and they run out of funding and they close it. And all of the people that were there in that facility just don't have anywhere to go, so they just end up on the street. And so you kind of have this cultural thing where they don't want to address mental health. And then when we do address mental health, we put people on medications. And apparently these medications don't stop people from doing shootings. Because almost all of these shooters were on medications, right? We switched from segregating mental patients to an integration self. Me, myself, I get help at home. Yeah, I don't know. You know, the thing is, when I hear about that is one of the medications that I'm on, the Strattera, it's like an antidepressant, or at least it functions in the same way. And when I first started taking it, there was definitely weird effects. It wasn't like I felt suicidal or anything, and there was a lot of other things going on in my life that made me feel unhappy. But there was a while there where my emotions were just not normal. And I can only imagine what it would be like for some, because, you know, I'm just attention deficit. It's not like a serious mood disorder. It's just more like impulse control. And for somebody that has like depression, I can only imagine what kind of, what's the word, you know, damage, what kind of damage that can do to you. And could certainly push somebody over the edge, yeah. The mental health angle is for incremental gun control. It will exclude 90% of the population in time. Yeah. Well, the thing is I don't think that you should be able to say if you've been prescribed this particular medication, you have to give up all your weapons. Or if you've ever been diagnosed with anything, you cannot take away gun rights without due process. But if you have a mental health disorder and you are on some medication and the police have had a run-in with you and you've been convicted of a crime, then they should be able to take your guns away, I think. That kid shouldn't have been allowed to have a gun. Well, anyways, it's 9:30, so I got to go on my call, but it was nice talking to you guys. And I will see you guys next week.